So warm welcome to everybody that just came to our first session of this year of the Digital Lab. It's an open session on improving your data visualization. And I'm very happy to be here today with a couple of very interesting organizations within the Partners Network, but also some strategic partners we're working with. It's Peace Tech Lab, Rutgers Fonds and R&W Media that will be presenting as well. And we have a guest as well from C Motions that will be explaining more about data visualization. Some of you might be here for the first time in a Partos session. So to just explain a little bit about what Partos is, we are a Dutch NGO platform that is basically facilitating the advocacy, communication, and learning and innovation agenda in international development. We have, if you can move on to the next slide, a couple of learning interventions, and basically innovation and learning is at the heart of what we call the Partos Innovation Hub. And we organize several activities on different thematic areas, of which data and digitalization is one of them. And these spaces are basically platforms for learning, for innovation, for sharing whatever challenges or questions might arise when we're talking about the sector of international development, but rather than that, also making social impact, transformation towards a more inclusive, just, and also well sustainable environment. Today we're going to focus on data and digitalization, obviously. And if you can move on to the next slide. And that all happens within our digital lab. And the digital lab basically is a space where we focus on supporting organizations to become more inclusive, just, but also data smart in their practices. And we don't do that alone. On our roadmap, we invite several partners, such as Peace Tech Lab, but also Analytics for a Better World that is also sort of involved in the data sets that will be presented today. And we also partner with the Principles for Digital Development. Those are a set of principles that provide nice guidelines for organizations applying digital interventions. We try to make that as accessible and open as possible for the online or the community that is active in this field. So within our community of practice, which is really a space for interaction, for learning, for more concrete learning questions, we try to gather individuals that are more looking for a peer-to-peer exchange. But also those open learning sessions, such as the one you're visiting today, are a result of those interactions and those collaborations. So if you're interested to also join our playground, you can always contact us. We will share the contact information and details later. I believe this is my last slide, isn't it? So with this short introduction, I would like to hand it over to Casper or Michiel from Peace Tech Lab. The focus of today will be on data visualization. And there's this one thing that I wanted to emphasize, and that is basically the need to focus on visualization is actually something we often wonder about, how data can be more utilized, can be utilized in a better way, in a way in which we can also unleash the potential of the data that we have towards, for example, donors, but also constituencies that we work with. And I believe that the practices and the examples that will be showed today really share those interesting reflections that you can have as an organization. So you're really invited to engage with us. On to you.
Okay, thank you, Gigi, for this introduction. Also, welcome from me to this Partos Digital Lab open session. My name is Michiel Kuik from Peace Tech Lab. Peace Tech Lab is a Dutch non-profit organization helping NGOs work better with data and digital tools, and we're helping Partos facilitating these COP sessions. And I will be hosting this session this afternoon together with my partner, Casper Staat. I'm showing the agenda for the session of this afternoon. We're working with three speakers who will provide information about in this session. We start with an introduction to data visualization from Koen van der Snoek, working for C-Motions. I will shortly introduce him. And then two members of the community of practice, Saad and Luciano, who will be presenting a case from their own experience, which will be reviewed by Koen and then can be discussed in general by all of us. And at the end, of course, the session closes and the evaluation. This, in short, is the agenda for today. Let's start with Koen van der Snoek, who is a consultant with a broad experience in business intelligence and visualization. And he helps organizations to provide structural and actionable insights. In addition, he provides Power BI and dashboard design training. C-Motions is comprises of 70 data-driven professionals, all working at the cutting edge of advanced analytics, data science, and applications in organizations. And Koen will give first a short introduction of the importance of data visualization and the aspects concerning around them. Koen, if I can give the word to you.
Yes, thank you, Michiel. Hi, everyone. Okay. I will start telling you more about the subject of today, data visualization. So I'm going to tell you why data visualization is important, how you can use it, and which design steps we use to create these data visualizations. So to start with, why is data visualization important? Nowadays, we see that there's an enormous amount of data available, and this is still growing. Almost of much of what we touch or work with automatically generates data. You can think of your car or phone or even your smart watch. And so companies collect more data than they ever did before. And they do this in some kind of virtuous circle of data analysis and action, followed by new insights, data creation, and data analysis again, all to transform their businesses and make data-driven decisions. However, in order to make these decisions, it's necessary to quickly understand all available data. And it's important that data is accessible to any person. So not only to persons who are comfortable working with data, but also to persons who are not that familiar working with data, both in business perspective, but also within your private surrounding. So how can data visualization help to make informed decisions? Well, understanding and interpreting data is an activity of human cognition, and visualization data makes processing the information easier for our brains. As you can see on this slide, the human brain is able to process visual information 60,000 times faster than written text. That's all because we're so trained in doing that, because when we are awake, we constantly are processing visual information. So our brain is really trained in it. And so this content can be absorbed much faster than text, but also the information is better interpreted and remembered when it's visualized rather than read or heard. So I suppose that there are a lot of people in this meeting who are used working with data and building visualizations, and maybe you create some data visualizations to present data to the audience. However, data visualization is not only very strong when presenting results, it's actually very strong in the whole chain, from analyst to audience. If you want to explore your data, data visualization is very useful to help you understand the quality of your data and see like the descriptions of your data and see if there are any missing values, are there any outliers or errors within your data. And then when you start analyzing, you can spot if there are any trends in your data or some kind of clusters. It is possible to spot local patterns using maps, and you can also try to identify and evaluate some modeling output. If you are able to do so, then you've got all the information gathered to present to your audience. So whether simple or complex, the right visualization can bring everyone on the same page, regardless of their level of expertise. Well, I brought an example of the number of birds per minute in the United States. And actually, before you see this visual, you expect this to be more or less evenly distributed. But the opposite turns out to be true. So when you see this visualization, you immediately, this large orange top draws your attention. And it seems that at 8 o'clock, 3.5 times as many babies are born at precisely this time, which is very strange. And this visualization, of course, you have to look at this visual a couple of times to fully understand the visual, but it gets your attention immediately at the right spot. And well, you have to start asking yourself questions. Why is this? Are they starting to administrate only starting at 8 o'clock? So is that why this enormous top is there, or is there any other reason? So how do we come to build such a visualization? Well, we are used to use a 6-step approach, in which the first step, the message and audience, is the most important. You have to know what your message is before you start building your visualization. If you do know what message you have or you want to bring to your audience, you should know something about your audience. How much time do they have available to look at this visualization? And are they used to reading graphs? And some other thing can be, maybe you just presenting your visualization in a session like this, but will it also stand out if it's shared later on? And will the message be then the same? And how is it going to be presented? Is it interactive or static? Is it on paper or on screen? Those things, combined with the type of data you use, and also the amount of data, and if there is any time involved, determines what visual you can choose. If you look online, there are a lot of decision trees helping you to find the right visual, but you have to know these ingredients. And then when you have chosen your visual, don't start building it right away, but start to sketch it first. And this one is also yellow on my page because this is a very important step, which often is forgotten by people. And why it is such important is because when you sketch it, you stay focused on a message. And when you're going to build it, well, then soon you're going to start with formatting and all that kind of stuff. But first you have to know if the message is transferred right. So Start with a sketch. And then if you finish this sketch, and maybe you change the visual you want to build, but if you are finished, then make it shine, because then color and formatting comes into play. So pick a beautiful color, be consistent with the use of color, but keep your axis and label serene. And most important, use your color as a magnet to draw attention to where you want it to be. So color is really powerful, but point 5, less is more, because perfection is achieved not when there's nothing more to add, but when there's nothing left to take away. And finally, guide your audience, because it would be bad if someone who's seeing your visual would take the wrong conclusion out of it. So you have to help them reading it in the way you want them to read it. So this is the end of my short introduction about data visualization. And what I want to ask you is keep these 6 steps in your head when you're going to look at the stories Luciano and Saad will be sharing with you, and think how they use these 6 things in building their visualizations. So now I will hand over the control to Saad.
Yes, thank you, Koen. And before Saad starts, let me first add, as Koen said, we see now 2 presentations, starting with the presentation of Saad. If you have questions arising when looking to this presentation, there is a link in the chat from AHA Slides where you can ask the question. So first we will let Saad tell his story, we'll let Koen shortly reflect on that, and then we can have a discussion together based on the questions you can ask in the AHA Slides where the link is in the chat. Okay, well, we start with Saad. Saad is based in the Netherlands with more than 10 years experience of working in the non-profit organization management industry in Pakistan and the Netherlands. He's graduated with a master's in public policy management from SOAS University of London, and he's currently working as a senior fundraiser at Rutgers, Nederland. Saad.
Yes, thanks, Michelle. Hi, good afternoon, everyone from Amsterdam. I'm happy and honored to be here, and nice to see a big group joining this session as well. Yeah, I'll just get right into it and share my screen to give you a small presentation and set the tone for what I'm going to present today. So I'm going to present to you a dashboard on fundraising. As Michael mentioned, that I work as a senior fundraiser at Rutgers. The dashboard that I'm going to show you today is created on a tool called Microsoft Power BI, and I'm going to tell you a bit about the tool as well. So in the fundraising team, we basically keep a track record of our fundraising initiatives. And how we basically do that is that we record it on a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet. Like you can see a screenshot over here, and below you see that for each year we have separate tabs of the proposals that we submit each year, and the ones that were approved and the ones that were rejected as well. And we, for each proposal, we describe them into different columns, for example. While this spreadsheet is nice to have, and it gives you a nice overview of what we have done over the year, however, it's not a very friendly way of getting more insight and analysis into how have we basically done or performed as a fundraising team. And specifically, if I want to talk, that these are some of the strategic questions which I think generally you need to ask yourself if you're working in fundraising, is that how have we performed in our fundraising, with which donors have we been successful, unsuccessful, what have been the trends of donors that we have worked in the past, what has the thematic focus been of our fundraising initiative, geographical wise, which countries, which regions have we been focusing in the past few years as well, what has been our return on investment, and how can we be more data driven in terms of our decision making for future fundraising. So these were some of the questions which I think every team does ask internally and in an organization. However, if we look at this Excel spreadsheet that I showed you, it might not give you answers to all of these strategic questions. So I was basically in the trajectory of learning Power BI as a tool, and as part of the fundraising team, I thought that I think we can use the data set and use Power BI as a tool to create a nice analysis of our fundraising initiatives in the past. Although the data set that I showed you is not very complex, it's a very simple data set on fundraising, because in programs and projects, we use very complex data sets. But even then, even with a very basic small data set, Power BI is able to make very nice dashboards. So Power BI is a business intelligence and data visualization tools. It creates appealing interactive dashboards. It's a very fast, powerful tool. It can analyze and create dashboards for data sets which even have 1 million, for example, rows or different columns as well. It's also free of cost. If you use a Windows on your laptop, you can download it. It's very much more powerful than Microsoft Excel in terms of comparison, analysis, interactiveness, and making tables and reports. And it also transforms your data automatically once you feed the data set into Power BI. And it also automatically creates relationships between different elements of your data set. And it's not a very difficult tool to learn as well, even if you don't have any background around programming, coding, for example. It will take you, let's say, around 3 months to learn Power BI and get hands-on with it. But of course, it is a very powerful tool. I still consider myself to be a beginner on Power BI as well. But I can show you that what I have basically developed so far. Can you see this? The dashboard? Yeah. All right. So I'm basically right now showing you a screen live from the dashboard of Power BI. So it might be a bit slow because I did not publish this, because I wanted to also show you a bit of tips and tricks on what we can see. So I fed the data that I showed you over 4 years of our fundraising into Power BI, and I was able to create this dashboard. And this dashboard is right now giving me our, let's say, an analysis and visualization performance over 4 years, in which how many proposals did Rutgers submit. One thing I need to also mention is that the data set is, I'm using a proxy data set. I'm not using the actual data set we use in Rutgers, because we cannot share all information publicly, but the data set that I showed you is the same in terms of its design. So this is an overview that Power BI is giving me for over what we have done as an organization in fundraising over 4 years. And here you can see that here I can also have an analysis and visualizations year-wise as well. So for example, if I press 2019 over here, Power BI immediately gives me an analysis in different visualizations around what we did in 2019, what we did in 2020, what we did in 2021, for example. And what I can also do is that I can also have a visualization for each aspect. Let's say I want to have that, okay, over the 4 years, only for the approved proposals, how have we performed? So if I click on approved, it immediately highlights only the approved proposals. How many approved proposals did we have each year? These are the donors, which we had a number of approved proposals as well. And in the national team, we had 33% approvals. In the national team, 66% was approvals. And these are the number of approvals, and it has broken down into different budget segments, that what was the budget allocation of each proposal segment wise as well. Now, if I go back and I say that, okay, I want to see my analysis for a certain donor, and here you see a donor called Zon NW, and I click on Zon NW, it gives me a 4-year basically performance of how we have done, or what we have done in the past 4 years with a certain donor. How has the performance been in terms of approvals and rejections? And if I want to see yearly wise as well, I just click on certain year, 2019, 2020, 21. And for the same donor, it can give me an analysis for every year as well. In the same way, I can do this for every other donor. I can do this for international department as well. I can also do this for national department as well. So any other question that you have in your mind in terms of analyses, Power BI can give you that, basically that analysis on the dashboard. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because of time, but I want to show you some more things as well. So this here, you see that this is an overview tab, but in the same dashboard, I have also created a countries dashboard or a visualization as well. So here you see that it has also mapped out that what has been our geographical focus on fundraising in the past 4 years. And if I hover my mouse onto a certain country, you can see that it gives you the country name, and this is the total budget that we have fundraised for a certain country in the past few years. Now, I want to have some more information for each country, let's say, for example, and here I have a list of different filters or fields that I can say that I say that, okay, for Malawi, for example, I just see the sum of total budget, but I want to see that, okay, how many proposals have we, sorry, I want to see that how many total proposals for Malawi have we submitted. So I click on this, the total approvals and the total rejections of the proposal as well. So if I hover my mouse to Malawi, as again, you will see that it's giving me further data around the total proposals we submitted for 4 years, total approvals and rejections as well. And I can do this for every other country that I can go to. And if I want to have an year-wise representation as well, I can do it yearly, that per year, what has been our geographical focus on fundraising. So 2020, you see that we have focused more on our fundraising in this region, for example, and other regions as well. We can see how are we spread out. So this is more to show that, okay, have we been fundraising for a specific region? What is that good? Is that bad? And that we can also see with further analyses that through different dashboards as well. Another visualization I want to show you is that this is basically donors. So this is called, this visualization is called a tree map, in which you feed in the donor data, and you can see that Ministry of Foreign Affairs SRHR partnership has the biggest blue box, which means the main chunk of the funding is coming from Ministry of Foreign Affairs as well. And it can show you the amount of the total budget. In the same way, if I click on total budget and total proposals, total rejections, total approvals as well, it will give me the same sort of analysis for each donor like it was giving me for the countries as well. So right here, okay, it's not doing it right now, I'm not sure, but anyway, I can do that here as well, that I can feed these fields into this dashboard as well, and for each donor it can show me different analyses of certain donors, that what we've done in the past few years and year-wise as well. A last visual that I want to show you is this visual. It's basically called a line and stacked column chart in Power BI. So in the y-axis, we have the sum of the total budget. In the x-axis, we have these years, and these are the bar charts. So you can see the bar charts are that what has been the budget allocation for international and national. The dark blue is for international, the light blue is for national, and these lines that we see are that what has been a rejection and approval rate been for our proposals and fundraising in the past few years. So this dark green, not too much difference between the colors, but dark green is the total proposals rejected, and the light green is the total proposals that were approved each year. So you can see that along with how our funding is going, you can also see that, okay, when our funding is going up, has our approval success rate also been going up or not? But in this case, that's actually not the case. So if you can see that for 2021, the total funding that we received is much lower than 2020. However, the approval rate has been going up. So you need to analyze and ask yourself that why is that? One answer could be that maybe the amount of each proposal that we submitted was small in terms of the budget. So that's why we had a lot of proposals which got accepted, but the budget or the funding from each proposal was low. But however, then you need to also ask and analyze further that, okay, does that mean that we put on too much effort into a lot of proposals, but ultimately we were not able to fundraise a very large amount as well. And one thing I want to show you is that if I hover here to this line and I right click and I click on analyze and I ask Power BI to explain this decrease in the line over here, I click on it and it will give me this explanation that why has our approvals decreased and why has the budget decreased as well, by donor wise, year wise as well. This is donor wise as well, that why has this trend increased or decreased, approval wise as well, and in terms of budget wise as well. So I won't go into details over here into these explanations, but that is what Power BI can also do, that you can actually further analyze your visualizations using this visualization as well. In the same way, these are a lot of visualizations that can be created depending on what your need is, and what you want to get out of Power BI as well. So going back to my presentation and ending it as well. So what are the recommendations and lessons learned for me so far on my journey towards data visualization? Is number one, I think that NGOs in general need to catch up to be more data driven. I read somewhere, I think it was a research by Action Hub, which said that NGOs only use 5% of their data to use data-driven decision making, and I think that needs to improve or can be improved. Secondly, right now in the time of tech and everyone lacking in time, no one has time to read large reports anymore. We need to be very smart and crisp with presenting and visualizing our data. Culture needs to be instilled at the organizational level. I think just having one person who is using different tools in an organization would not make an organization data driven. There needs to be a culture and ownership from top to bottom as well. Then I realized that it's not only necessary that you need to have the skill to use a tool. You can use a tool and make visualizations, but those visualizations might not be compelling if you are also not able to tell a story or create a business case through the visualizations that you develop in a certain tool. Thirdly is that you need to also learn or have a mindset towards how you can humanize your data. I mean, especially for people working in NGOs, a lot of numbers and data and tech and statistics sometimes scares us, because we are people who like to be connected to the human side. We like to tell stories, we like to receive stories, write a lot of stuff. We like qualitative data as well, but you need to realize that all of this data that we are receiving and analyzing is ultimately going to change someone's life where we are working as well. And last but not least is that you need to first ask the right questions before you visualize your data or start making decisions around your data, and then come up with answers. Just don't go into a black hole and start developing different visualizations and analyses as well, as long as you don't know that what are you actually trying to get out. Like Koen said, that you need to be very smart, less is more as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Looking at time, I hope I was able to give you a very small sort of snapshot of what Power BI can do and the visualizations that I was able to create in the fundraising team. If you want to get in touch with me, I have my email over here as well. And I'm looking forward to Koen's critique and also your questions on what I just shared as well. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much, Said, with this impressive dashboard and also your feedback on the usage of Power BI and its possibilities. If you have questions for Said, in the chat there is a link to AHA Slides where you can ask these questions. Please use this link and ask questions you want. And in the meantime, I will ask Koen to give some insights on the dashboards Said has presented.
Okay, thank you. First of all, Said, a really great dashboard you built, and really great to see how enthusiastic you are about this part, this data visualization part, and the effort you put into it, and then what you can get out of it. I prepared a few slides just to make it a little bit more accessible to view, well, to have also the background of my comments. So I'll start share my screen again. This one. So I also looked at the SAAT's dashboard from this perspective, and first of all, when you look at this dashboard, what is really nice is the consistent use of color. So what you see is the dark blue in total proposals, and you see that it's coming back in the bar chart on the right side, and where you also see this measure. Also, the green and red color in the approved and rejected part is also used consistently through those two visualizations. What you also see is that it's getting difficult if you want to combine it with just some more dimensions, as you see here at the bottom right corner, where budget also is added to the visual, and it becomes more difficult to stay so consistent on your colors. And well, I try to build a visual and to see what you can do about it and change the perspective of it. Furthermore, what's really interesting in SAAT's story is that he really begins with building this dashboard more from an exploring view. So try see what is possible. What can I do with the data? What information do I have? What analysis can I make? And then when he created this dashboard, and he also added some visuals to it last week, which were pretty nice. Well, also, maybe you could also see this as some kind of sketch. And from this sketch, you could also go back to your stakeholders and ask them questions. Okay, if you see this, what can I add? So that, or from what perspective do you want to look at the visuals and make it more valuable for you? Or where do I have to emphasize more? Or what background is needed to really make it an actionable dashboard? So if you're looking at the message you want to tell, you see in the top left is the approved versus rejected proposals. Well, if the question is what's the development in the number of approved proposals, this visual is great. But if you actually want to compare the percentages, well, then it's better to just show those percentages. And when I look at a bar chart at the top right, immediately I see that the rejected percentages are going down, which is pretty nice. But I also think, oh, why don't I then create a line chart? And that's maybe better suit the need of the question you have. So you see that with a little bit different message you want to tell, you maybe want to change your visualization and show it differently. Well, another thing is I thought about less is more and make it shine. I try to recreate the budget graph and try to get everything everything you don't need to remove it from the chart and make it more serene. And I want to emphasize the approved percentage. So I highlight that one and I use the light gray color for the rejected part. And I also changed the axis. So I clustered the budget instead of the approved rejected. So maybe the chart SAAT created is better because of the question he has, but it's also possible to show it like this and use those percentages, which make it more easy to compare the approved and proposal rates per budget. And you could even say just get rid of the rejected percentage because it would add up to 100%. So you don't even need those as well. And finally, and Saad already used this feature within his dashboard, but I want to emphasize on it. If you want to guide your audience and help them to read the visuals in the right way, it's sometimes more difficult to look at absolute numbers where you have to create or think of the conclusion, or maybe even calculate the conclusion yourself. But if you use percentages, we're so used to comparing percentages, and it's more easy. So if you see the visual below, it's more easy to see that in this case, if you select, I think this is an example of the international donor part, that the approved rate is much higher than average. And in the above visual, it's more difficult to create this conclusion. So these are some simple feedback on Saad's visualization in Power BI. I'm curious if you've got any other questions on it.
Okay, thank you, Koen. There are some questions asked in the slides. Therefore, I will ask Casper, who is monitoring these questions, to bring some up for discussion.
Yeah, and I happily will. And also my compliments to you, Saad. Impressive what you've done in the past week as well. I'm just going to select a few, and I think for the ones that we cannot discuss here, let's follow up with them later so that the questions that are asked get the attention that they need. There are some questions about Power BI specifically, but also a general question, and I'm also wondering how you took that upon you. And that is like how, well, you mentioned asking the right questions before you dive into building a dashboard. Is there a certain structure that you followed for what are these questions that I need to ask? Where did you start?
Well, I think, like I said, that, you know, we, in the fundraising team, we went into, this year we are into a process where we are strategizing our fundraising. We are developing a fundraising strategy for the coming years. And as part of that process, a lot of questions were already coming in mind that, okay, you know, how do we want to proceed forward, for example. And as part of that process, the questions were already being asked within the team. These questions were coming up, and I think that spreadsheet that I showed you was not enough to give answers to a lot of those questions. However, I think Power BI is able to answer some of those questions, for example, to give deeper analysis into our fundraising intervention in the past. But I think it's also a matter of, because like I said, that, you know, Power BI is not a very, very difficult tool to learn. And for me, for example, I don't have a background in programming, coding as well. So I wanted to see that, okay, I do know Microsoft Excel, but in Excel, I'm not getting answers to the questions that we are asking internally. What is it that I can learn and use? So Power BI seemed like the right step, and visualization is something which I also seemed is the right step to go as well. I mean, there are a lot of different ways through which you can analyze your data. Visualization is one of them. So I wanted to have a mix of that. Okay, I want to visualize it, but I also want to not go into a very extensive process of learning coding or programming or something like that. So Power BI was a tool which was ticking those boxes for me as well. And I think the question just came internally in the team, in my mind as well, and the strategic process that we are in as well. So that's where the questions were coming from, and that's how I was trying to answer them through visualization of data in Power BI.
Yeah, Thanks. So indeed, from strategic questions and then onwards, and I can totally imagine when you start visualizing that other questions arise when you see what you've presented. Thank you. I hope that answers the question. Otherwise, please do follow up. You already mentioned that there's a question about why did you pick Power BI? I think you already mentioned it somewhat. Have you used like specific resources online or offline that helped you build in Power BI? Any recommendations that you have to the audience here?
Well, I was basically part of a fellowship by ABW, Analytics for a Better World. They are an organization who train people working specifically in the development sector and NGOs on different tools around data analytics. And that is where I started learning Power BI. However, I continue to learn it through different YouTube videos. Udemy is another website, UDEMY, which gives you a lot of nice courses on Power BI. They are paid, but they're very cheap. Like you pay $10 and you can do a whole course on Power BI. So I did one course on Udemy as well on Power BI. It was almost, I think, 18-hour total, and I paid like $10. But that really helped me as well. But other than that, I think you learn a lot by doing as well. You know, you just pick data sets and just play around with the tool, come up with a lot of experimentation as well. So sometimes I get stuck and I use a lot of Google to search what is going on, how do I get myself out as well. So in that way, it's a tool which you can self-learn. You do not really need to go into a very extensive training or something. And I think that there are enough resources out there on the internet through which you can learn Power BI yourself. You do not need to have a master's on Power BI to learn it.
I'm sorry, my internet crashed for a bit there. I hope that answers the other questions as well. And definitely it shows when you just go around with the data that the skills, you can further improve them then. So now you have it online, you have the dashboard running. Have you already been able to share it with your colleagues, and how did you do that?
Yes, I was able to share it with some of my people in the team to show what I did. We did it in a meeting. However, the dashboards that I was showing you them live in the tools to also give you a feel of what the tool looks like and how I was, changing different fields and filters in the graphs to show you that what analysis it can give you. However, if you want to share it with someone or present it, you can publish the dashboard. There is an option of publishing in Power BI that it then transforms the data set into a presentation mode. However, even in presentation mode, it's still going to be interactive. So like I was clicking on different bar charts and it was interacting with me. Even in publish mode and presentation mode, Power BI allows you to do that you can actually play around with the data and make it interactive as well, and not like it doesn't show you like a slide or presentation mode where it's a certain visual, but if you click something, it does not give you further analysis. Power BI does give you further analysis in presentation mode as well. So yeah, I can publish it and share the link, and you can further see analysis by clicking on each certain graph and visual in Power BI as well.
All right. Thank you, Saad and Casper. Because of time, I think we have to proceed to the next presenter. And as Casper says, please keep on putting your questions in the slides, and that also counts for if you have questions to Luciano, who is coming next as a presenter of his case. Luciano is also a member of the community of practice, and he is a monitoring and evaluation officer at RNW Media. He has a background in research, M&E, partner management and evaluations. He works in the Netherlands, United Kingdom and Mexico. And he's graduated in with masters in international development from the University of Oxford. And he will be presenting his visualization coming up.
Thank you so much, Michiel. And really great to see your presentation too, Saad. So hello, everyone. My name is Luciano. Today I'll be sharing baby steps in visualizing data. And by baby steps, I really mean baby steps, because the visualizations that I will be sharing with you today, I've made in the last 2 days. And that's not because I've been procrastinating towards this session, but it is because I wanted to share preliminary analysis and visualization results of a research that we've been doing over the last few weeks. And it has been a challenge, especially preparing the data set for the visualization, but it's been incredibly helpful. And I've also learned a lot from this community of practice. So here I'm humbly sharing some of the first results. So before I jump into the impact research that we did and some of the results, I think some context for some people. So I work for RNW Media. We are an international digital media organization working for social change, and we work in countries where the human rights of young people are under threat. So our vision is that we believe in a world in which young people in all their diversity claim their rights, assume their place in society, and drive social change. Now, our mission statement is somewhat complex, I think, but we accelerate the impact of change makers by creating youth-centered digital media solutions. And concretely, for people who don't know RNW Media, is that we work with and for young people, and we focus on engaging them online. So we work a lot with building digital communities for social change, thinking about engaging young people online through social media and such. So in order to jump into this research that we did, I had to give you a bit of a context. So we focus on young people, on human rights or SDGs that matter to them. And what we aim to change or accelerate is changes in behaviors, attitudes, beliefs, social norms, and policies. And these things are not easy to measure. It's not easy to measure changes on these levels. So in the last few weeks, some M&E colleagues and myself have been trying to do this, but not just by ourselves, but in very close collaboration with 6 partners in 5 countries. So we've launched what we call the impact research, and the purpose was somewhat twofold, maybe more than that, but first to really provide evidence, which is a challenge, as I just said, of the impact of the work of RNW Media and our partners. But secondly, it was also really with the purpose of utilizing that data for planning, adaptation, and to make that more concrete for you. For example, if you're a digital platform with multiple social media accounts trying to inform young people about their sexual reproductive health and rights, it is incredibly useful to hear what content is and is not working, what is relevant to them. So we have kind of 2 purposes with this data collection in showcasing our impact, but also to actually try to be data-driven based on the learnings. So what we've been doing is, as I said, work with 6 partners in 5 countries on the data collection. We did a wide range of qualitative methods, such as interviews, focus group discussions. As many of you will know, use methodologies such as outcome harvesting and most significant change reporting. But we also did a online survey. And this online survey we disseminated through the platforms of our partners, translated them to Arabic, Kirundi, French, and we collected a lot of data, 3,465 responses, which was way more than we expected. And the data was specific to each partner. I'll show that to you in a bit, in that it was asking about topics relevant to the content that they create. And now we finished the data collection last week, and this week, literally the last few days, I'm making baby steps in the visualization using Tableau, which is another visualization tool. I'm competing with the SAT, but I think if the outcome of this session is that some of you will either use Tableau or Power BI, I think we will both win. So the type of survey data, to give you an idea. So we collected a lot of survey data on questions which is simple demographics, such as gender, age, location. And then we have the complex questions, which is the changes. So changes in knowledge, changes in opinions, beliefs, behaviors, practices, and social norms. Then we have other questions, such as ability to use the information to make informed decisions, for example, as part of service referrals for some partners. We had open-ended questions to kind of gather contextual stories and examples. We wanted to measure how adequate the content is and how often people, the users, visit the digital platforms. So for the change stories, we did this using a scale of 1 to 5, asking really to what extent did you improve your knowledge? And then we did this per topic that is relevant to the partner. So for example, here on the right in the example, you see HIV. So you have the 1 to 5 scale from not at all to a great extent. And we kind of, this Tuesday, decided that a significant change means people selecting 4 and 5 to a large extent and to a great extent. So to give a bit of a context about how we prepared the data set, which is what we've been working on, is that you first have to, these are, by the way, fancy names, but the reality of, for example, the data migration is downloading all Excel sheets from 6 partners, 5 countries, and for some reason, don't ask me why the partners and us settled on using 3 different survey tools. Not a very good idea. So the second step is structuring the data, standardizing it, translating it, and getting it all together in one file. Then you had to model it, so creating, for example, new categories. Some of the partners work on the same strategic partnership, so you can make a per program column, and you have to code it somewhat. That also sounds very fancy. In reality, it was just color coding it, for example, that you had the answers per partner. Then the analysis and our way into the data, as I briefly mentioned before, was kind of 2 focus areas. So showcasing the RNW Media cross-partner impact and outcome level. And that's very much connected to our own TOC and the programs that we work in. But secondly, also sharing the insights for learning and giving back the data to the partners that we collaborated on, because we see the data collection was very much a collaboration, and thus the data is as much theirs as it is ours as in RNW Media's. And then here we go, the visualization. So using the free tool of Tableau. So please bear in mind, I have made these visualizations using Tableau for the first time in the last 2 days. I already see many things that I could improve. Here you see the division per demographics. I think you could make it much clearer by making the things bigger. I see here the percentages and the number of respondents. Could be useful to present the percentages here, for example. We are, by the way, using the name of the countries and not of the partners specifically, just to keep them anonymous, since we're still analyzing the data. Here, by demographic data. So here you see, for example, a super clear outcome immediately is that the responses or the group is incredibly high educated, with bachelor's degree being a huge amount of people. So that's very useful. Again, I think I could definitely improve these visualizations. The bar charts are too big, the name of the levels of degree too small. So I definitely have work to do here. And then here comes like the complex data, which was really a challenge for us to visualize. And this is as you see here in the top, so to what extent did you change your knowledge? And this is across all topics that our partners create content on. So here, I thought I wanted to see what content performed best. So again, by significant change in the top right, this column, you see that, for example, safe sex, the role of women, sexual orientation, HIV, all these things, all these topics perform very well. And then I made the visualization, I sent it to our working group, and I realized actually today I don't need the left column, the no significant change. I could leave that out and the data would speak much louder. But I thought, let me not mill back and change it. It's very much a learning whilst doing. So that's my feedback to myself in sharing my very preliminary visualizations with you. So again, this is changes in opinions, again by topics, but here we did also by significant change, but yeah, categorizing the topic per partner or per country here. And for example, here you see that Kenya performed incredibly well with the overall, it says total, but it should be average, of 71 significant change in opinions and beliefs per topic. And that shows also, for example, our partner in Kenya has been operating as a digital community for many years. It shows the sustainability of their impact in terms of that they have become a trustworthy source of reliable information. Their community trusts and believes in the content that they make, where, for example, our OPT partner is only just exploring engaging young people online. So it's this provides very interesting insights, but again, I would completely take away the no significant change column and just keep the significant change here. So this is another one, using information to make informed decisions. So to what extent do you use the information that you get from our platform, the partner asked to make informed decisions? And they also provided examples on this. And you see here on the right the significant change. So that is on the scale from 1 to 5, the categories of 4 and 5. You see quite high numbers, but not across all partners. Or actually, compared to the other numbers of opinions and beliefs, it is lower, which is interesting. And knowledge is even higher. I guess it is harder to change opinions and beliefs than it is to create knowledge. So another, as I said, focus area of the data, what we're aspiring to visualize, and don't worry, these are not the end products of our visualizations, is to give back to the partner. And also some of the questions were specifically designed for that. So for example, the question, to what extent was the content adequate? Here, I looked at our partner in Kenya and I saw almost 71%, which I thought was incredibly high. And then I thought, I just wanted to know how the other partners were doing, which will also be interesting for them to see. And here you see a comparison. I think I could, again, enlarge the percentages, but my Tableau skills are really a week old, and they definitely need a lot more work. So this is, yeah, this is, it provides a quick insight, how the platform is doing, how the users find the content adequate, as the question states. So this was also a clear, question that is very important for our partners and their digital platforms. If your users are no longer visiting you, which is a quite hard thing to measure, actually. Because in digital data, for example, you see your community, but I think many of us in this group here are still part of communities of Facebook pages, but it might have been 3 months or 3 years that you visited Facebook in general. So it's very hard to get insights into how frequent your users are using your platform. So asking this, and again, it was an incredibly high score. This was again the case for Kenya, but this type of data is incredibly useful for our partners. So we definitely want to use this data, explore, improve our visualizations. I think it's a clear difference with Saad, whereas for him a dashboard makes a lot of sense. I think our data is just too much, so we definitely have to do more of a reporting thing, but we also are very aware as you said, that not people don't want to read a 20-page report with visualization. So our next step is to look at other ways to visualize the data, maybe make infographics, and we kind of want to see how far we get with Tableau. I think there's still a lot for us to explore. But as you see in this lovely screenshot with my colleagues, we have been working a lot on data collection last few weeks. The last week on the data master file, where we combined all the data from the 6 partners. The structuring, which was very useful for us, I learned a lot by doing it. But the visualization, as you see in the bottom right, started on the 14th, meaning this Tuesday. So this is very much me sharing baby steps. But I also want to say a big thank you to my team, but also to this community of practice, for learning and for also kind of encouraging to share these preliminary findings. So now over back to Koen, and thanks again to everyone.
Yes, thank you, Koen. Sorry, thank you, Luciano. I think you made a great progress in just a few days, which already gives a nice insight. If you have questions about this presentation for Luciano, please put them in the AHA slides. The link is in the chat. But for now, we just go to Koen to give a first response. And then we will, from the questions asked, we will discuss them in public.
Yes,
Koen.
thank you. Yeah, first of all, great effort you put into it, Luciano, to just prepare something before this session. And I see the data and where it was coming from and the effort you put into it, and that was really great that you managed to build this first visualization. So I think it really shows how difficult it can be to get the insights from your data that you want to, and also the insights that are useful. And sometimes people ask me, well, what's the distribution between visualizing data and preparing stuff? And then I always maybe should disappoint people and say that the load often is maybe like 75% or sometimes even more in data preparation, and which can be very hard and also be very boring. Of course, there are people loving doing it, but it could also be very repetitive work. And but then when you are finished, well, then you can start with visualizing data. But the end user only see this part, so it's good to emphasize that that it really costs a lot of time to prepare your data in order to get the most out of it. And what is also important, and what we discussed before, is the message you want to tell. And Luciano really got actually 2 different kind of audiences he wants to help. On the one side, he wants to help RNW media and try to see, okay, what this questionnaire brings us, but he also wants to build some visualizations for the partners themselves. And in my opinion, you should separate these both of these stories to get the most out of it. Because when you start to combine too many things, well, people would get distracted very soon, and you can better to build 2 separate visualization which just answer the questions for both different audiences, than build one that doesn't answer the question for both groups. So that would be a good thing to do, just to separate. Then I've got a few remarks on some minor things. Of course, I know that you had less time to prepare, but just to learn something from it. looking at this visualization about the education, of course, you just see that the bachelor education level scores the highest, but there's also some kind of logical sequence in this education level. So maybe it would be more wise to sort the education level in this way, so that maybe your conclusion would still be that most people who filled in the questionnaire are have a bachelor degree, but you can't really see if these are the high education level or maybe more the low education level. So when you just order it, it become more logical for people because they know there is a logical order within it. And I see I didn't start the presentation. Sorry, this is better. And also when you're looking at this is really great in starting exploring your data. But maybe when you're going to present it to a larger group, it would be interesting to see if you can maybe group some of these subjects. So maybe you got like 4 or 5 different groups, and you can see that, let's say there are 4 and 3 of them score pretty good, but one is standing out. Then you can say, okay, we will deep dive into this one. So you really help the people step by step through your story. And of course, it must be possible, but first looking at this visual, and then, okay, then you're going to think, oh, maybe it could be better to just put some level on top of it. And therefore it's very useful that you just build this visual first. So it helped you to create a better one. What also is important, and that you used on one of the other slides, I think it's here, it's always nice to have some perspective. So when looking at, for instance, the scores in Kenya, well, just because you're able to compare them with Egypt and Burundi, well, then you can see that those are pretty high. But when you only would show Kenya, you can't put them in perspective, and then it's difficult to draw conclusions. So when you're going to build visuals, it's, well, adding perspective makes you helps you to draw conclusions and say if things are good or bad, or things increased or decreased. So it's a very important part of a good data visualization.
Okay, cool. If I may interrupt you, I would like to see with Casper if there are some questions from the audience, so we can have some time for that too.
Currently there is one, so if others want to still fill out, go ahead. You've been saying, Luciano, that these have been just your baby steps, however impressive they already are. Have they already been helpful in a way that you think, oh, this is already great knowledge to us, or not? Or how have they helped you?
Yeah, I think it especially helps us simply in understanding how we're performing in, for example, our collaboration with partners, and so it's not just showcasing, but I think what is really going to be showcasing our impact, but what's going to be really helpful is to look at where the gaps, where the overperformance, underperformance is with partners, how that can inform them, and then also, for example, make way for value clarification and how we can support them with that. So I think what I'm most excited about is that to make draw lessons, conclusions, and start using those. And I see that those type of lessons are definitely deriving from the data. Yeah.
Those were the questions, Casper? for now. Casper has some internet problems again. Well, no problem, no worries about that. We have some few minutes left. Of course, as Gigi will tell us later, if you want to go more in detail and discussion, it's nice to become a member of the community of practice, where there is more, of course, more room for interaction with all of them. Maybe some last words of Koen, based on the presentation of Luciano before we end this session.
Yes. Yeah, what I do see, and we met, I think, like a week before with this small group, and I also know Saad and Luciano from the Analytics for a Better World Academy, and I think what we see is just by sharing those stories with each other and tell what you want to achieve and look at what they built already, that makes us able, because I'm just, as Saad and Luciano, also always working on building the right visual, and it helps to well, to work together and well, if there's just a small visual to look at or some first visualizations, then go to collaborate with each other and build it to a great level, and so you need each other, and I do think this let's say this this platform really can assist in that, because you can't do it on your own that good as when you're doing it together.
Yes, well, thank you, Koen. Let's see if Casper, are there any questions left, or
Yeah, sorry, my internet broke. Yeah, there are some questions. Maybe to go to the first, what the main differences between Tableau and Power BI are there any, Koen, or if the audience still has to decide, are there any specific things one has to keep in mind?
Yes, of course, there are a lot of differences, but I think the power of Power BI is that there is a great community online behind it, and of course it's a Microsoft product, so we're typically used working with Microsoft, so it's really accessible, and like Saad said before, well, you're really quick up to speed. Tableau, on the other hand, gives you more freedom in building your visuals, and you can really create some beautiful visuals within Tableau, but it's, well, I think it's more difficult to learn it, and on the, and of course both as well, Tableau as Power BI have some kind of licensing model behind it, and you of course have to dive into it, how this fits within your organization, but both also got a free license and where you can just start building. So I hope this this will give you some background when you have to choose one of them. And on the other hand, of course, there are just a means. There are so many tools online available. Those are both good tools where a lot of companies work.
Thanks. For a final question, Casper, then we should have to go.
Yeah, well, I think the last question is from Naima, and for the readability of a report and to enhance the impact of our work, would you advise to have the right balance between infographics and Tableau? Do you understand the question, or could you maybe elaborate, Naima, if it's?
Yes, sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
No, I was just like, you know, regarding the research reports and also any report we could have on our work. I was just, you know, thinking about the readability, and is it easier to read a report when we have like a balance between different types of data visualizations and Tableau, as you mentioned, or would you advise specific data visualization? It's really about the readability, really.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think we're going to, I don't have the answer, Naima, but I think that's exactly the next step when we're doing the visualizations. I think for us, for example, we do have, for like you mentioned, our annual report. We will create visuals for that, but I am going to try and minimalize the use of huge tables and all these things, and rather start visualizing and then see if we can get input from people in how to simplify that. So indeed, for us, the dream is not to make a huge report with 20 tables and 50 bar charts and 10 pie charts. That it's seeing how far we get in visualizing and then seeing how we can make it even more accessible. So for us, the end product will be a nice infographic, and I'm not sure if we'll reach that ourselves with Tableau or if we then have to share our visuals with the designer who could do that. But those are exactly the questions I think that we're going to address. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Luciano.
All right. Thank you very much, Saad and Luciano and Koen, for the presentations and the discussion around them. I would like now to give the word to Gigi to close up the session. And
yes, I'll take it on. So first of all, I really would like to thank all of the speakers. Really impressive. I've learned a lot personally. I won't share any insights or personal learnings, but really thanks. I hope the rest also enjoyed sitting in and listening to these examples shared. I really want to take this as an example of the learning space that we're aiming to build, our community of practice on data and digitalization. It is really focusing on these peer-to-peer exchanges, any questions that might arrive in your work. I can imagine it feels sometimes quite lonely or siloed within your organization. So this community is really focused on building a knowledge exchange and also, perhaps working groups where you can dive a bit deeper into those practical questions that might surface. So really reach out to me if you have any questions, if you want to join our community of practice. For the coming year, we have a lot of exciting activities planned, interesting collaborations as well. Analytics for a Better World, we've been in contact with them as well. And the community of practice, of which, or in which Saad and Luciano are also part of, is also planning to organize exciting activities. So stay tuned. We also would like to do a